All right, these are the sample solutions for Section N quadrilaterals for the IXL homework. All right, so question 1 says, is this polygon a trapezoid? The requirements for being a trapezoid is that you have exactly one pair of parallel sides. So in this case, we have that with this side and this side. So the answer is yes. Okay. Yes, submit. 10. Okay. This one's asking if it's a trapezoid. They don't give us any information on whether any sides are parallel. Worse than that, this has 5 sides, and a trapezoid is supposed to have 4 sides. So this is a no. This is a trapezoid. It has 4 sides and a pair of parallel sides. This is not a trapezoid, although it does have 4 sides. No 2 of its sides are parallel to each other. So this is no. Is this a trapezoid? Although it has a pair of parallel sides, it has more than 4 sides, and which doesn't work for a trapezoid. A trapezoid is supposed to be a quadrilateral, which is a polygon with 4 sides. So this is no. Okay, this is also no for the same reason. Let's jump up a level. Okay, so here we're asked to select all the trapezoids. So this one in the top left is 4 sides and a pair of parallel sides, and that's the only one that's going to work. Okay, the top 2 are trapezoids, and so is the bottom left one. And let's look at the fourth one. The fourth one, it's got 4 sides and 1 pair of parallel sides. So this one is also. So in this case, all 4 are trapezoids. Okay. In this case, the top right, the bottom right, and the bottom left are all trapezoids. The one on the top left is not a trapezoid because it doesn't have any pair of parallel sides. Okay. And I think that's enough for this section. Let's go to N2. Okay, so we're asked to classify quadrilaterals in the most accurate name you can give. So this one is going to be a rhombus. The reason it's a rhombus, it's because all 4 sides are congruent. That's what the little red marks mean. Although you could also call it a parallelogram, the most descriptive name is a rhombus, because a rhombus adds that extra bit of information that all 4 sides are the same. Whereas parallelogram, let's draw another parallelogram. So like this would be an example of a parallelogram. Okay. So although on the rhombus we have opposite sides parallel, just like in the just like in the parallelogram. The problem is that the parallelogram doesn't have all 4 sides congruent. So we're missing this information in a parallelogram. That's not true for a parallelogram. Okay. So although the rhombus is a parallelogram, it definitely has all 4. Hold on, let me erase some of this stuff. So although the rhombus does have opposite pairs of sides parallel, just like parallelograms do, therefore the rhombus is a parallelogram, but the rhombus has more, and that's that all 4 sides have to be the same length. So the most accurate name to give here is a rhombus. Guess not. I answered rhombus, but the answer is... Oh, I'm sorry. I misread the question. Yeah, it's not asking for the most descriptive name. It's asking for all that apply. So it's actually both rhombus and a parallelogram, which I actually did mention that the rhombus is also a parallelogram. Sorry, read the question wrong. Okay, let's do another one. Which terms describe the shape? Choose all that apply. Okay, so let's just look at each name first. So it says rhombus. Is this a rhombus? Well, a rhombus has to have all four sides the same, and it doesn't have that. So it's not a rhombus. What about rectangle? This is definitely a rectangle. One of the definitions of a rectangle is that all four angles are 90 degrees, so this is definitely a rectangle. Is this a square? No, it's not, because kind of like a rhombus, we need all four sides to be congruent, but they're not here. And then, is it a parallelogram? Yes, it is, because opposite sides are congruent to each other. So for parallelogram, you can think two things. Either you're checking for opposite sides to be congruent, like these two and these two, or you're checking for them to be parallel. So this side parallel to this side, and this side parallel to this side. You're checking for either of those two things for it to be a parallelogram. So this is a parallelogram. Submit. Okay. Which terms describe this shape? Choose all that apply. Okay, so we can tell from the markings that opposite sides are parallel to each other. So it's definitely a parallelogram. It's not a square though, because not only do they have to be parallel, but they have to be the same. All four sides have to be congruent to each other, which we're not given that information, nor does it really look like that. And also, all four angles have to be 90 degrees, which doesn't seem that way either. Can we tell if it's a rhombus or not? The answer is no, because a rhombus requires all four sides to be congruent. And is it a rectangle? We can't tell that either from this, because we don't know that those are 90-degree angles in the interior. So this is just a parallelogram. Okay. So let's see, is this a rectangle? The answer is yes. All we need for it to be a rectangle is either that the four angles are 90 degrees or that all four sides are congruent. In this case, we happen to have both. So although it is a square, you can still call it a rectangle. So this is one of those things where sometimes rectangles are squares, and a square is always a rectangle. Okay, is it a parallelogram? The answer is yes, it is a parallelogram, because we have that opposite sides are congruent. That's all we need for it to be a parallelogram. So it is a parallelogram. Okay, and then is it a rhombus? And that is also true, because all four sides are congruent, which is all we need for it to be a rhombus. Okay, so a square is also a rhombus, and it's also a parallelogram, and it's also a rectangle. A square is all of those things. So any property that a parallelogram has, a square has it. Any property that a rectangle has, a square also has that property. And any property that a rhombus has, a square also has that property. Which terms describe this shape? Choose all that apply. Okay. We cannot say it's a rectangle because we don't know if those angles are 90 degrees. They certainly don't look like it. Okay. The most descriptive name we could give it is a rhombus, because all four sides are the same. Now, it's not a square because we don't know that those angles are 90 degrees. Now, is it a parallelogram? And the answer is yes, it is a parallelogram, because we need opposite sides to be congruent for a parallelogram. And in this case, they are. It's even more than that. All four sides are actually, they're all the same. But but as a subset, we can say that opposite sides are congruent. So it is a parallelogram. Okay, let's move up a level. Oh, this is a good one. We don't have any information. The best we can do here is just say it's a quadrilateral. Okay, and then this is a new one. So this is called a kite. And the reason it's a kite is because